Hello and welcome to the Kick in the Creatives podcast, hosted by myself, Sandra Busby, and my fellow creative Tara Roskell, offering you interviews, inspiration, motivation, and a gentle prod in the right direction. And for lots more information, challenges, and other useful tools to help you get creating, you can go to www.kickinthecreatives.com. And of course, this is where you can also find today's show notes. Enjoy the show. So today we have photorealism artist Callum Stephen on the show. You might be familiar with Callum since he was one of the finalists on BBC's The Big Painting Challenge this year. And I particularly wanted to chat to Callum because he's a self-taught artist with a non-creative day job and he paints photorealism paintings. Now, some of the art challenges set on the programme would have gone against my every instinct had I have taken part, so I wanted to find out why Callum took part on the show and whether the experience was a positive one. Enjoy the show! So Callum, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you so much for talking to me today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me on. It's my pleasure. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, yeah, me too. And first of all, I really want to know where your creative journey began. So when did you actually realise that you wanted to be an artist?
Yeah. God. Well, it's quite a weird little story, but so about 2 years ago, because I'm dyslexic, I've always been quite creative. Especially when I was a kid, I always used to sketch or whatever, and stuff like that. But it's like my creative journey really began when I was in Australia traveling, and I was in this little town called it's called Alice Springs, and like there's nothing else to do there except see Ayers Rock and whatever. So I stumbled across this little bookshop, and in the book front window there was there's a little book sort of it's from Van Gogh's Stories to Theo. And so I grabbed it, which captured my eye. I just grabbed the book because I had nothing else to do. So I think I bought the book for like $5 and just went back to the park and started to read about Van Gogh's some letters to his brother Theo, and got really passionate about it because the whole story really sort of like inspired me in his journey. Especially because it was quite different for me because I was just an average lad playing rugby from Wales and whatever, so I wasn't really into art at all. So I read the book, went to a park, and basically, as I was literally my last page of finishing this book, this Aboriginal sort of bloke came out the bush quite wildly, and he grabbed me by my shoulder and just tapped me on the shoulder and said, he pulled out this little canvas from under his coat and he tried selling it to me for $10 that his wife had painted. So Phyllis, his wife, was standing behind this very thin palm tree. Now, she's quite a large lady, and she's quite shy. So I was trying to sort of get her to come and sort of tell me about the work and stuff that she was trying to sell me. So I cracked up a deal. I said, right, so Phyllis, if you could tell me more about this little painting that you're going to sell me, so I'll pull out some money, and then we'll look into it. Because just at the time, bear in mind, I was just a backpacker in Australia. I had just enough money to sort of feed myself.
How old were you at this point, Callum?
I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 21. So I went to the cash machine, and so they wanted obviously $10 for it. So I went to the cash machine and I pulled out $50, and because I thought that this painting was worth so much more, and I wish I could pay a lot more for it, because I had no money. So so I got the money, and then she told me about the piece that she gave me and stuff, and that that the style was all like the old-fashioned sort of Aboriginal dotted painted by hand, and it's really quite amazing little piece. And then after that, they started crying with emotion and whatever, because the $50 went a long way to them, because they lived in because they obviously lived in this little metal sort of shack, by 2 meters by 1 meters. So it was very small, and they had a family of 5. And then it was as I was walking away, she came up to me and she whispered in my ear, sort of thing, as is really quite bizarre. She said, "Right, and just go home and just be creative and just start to paint." And then even if you sort of haven't painted before, just go home and start painting. And that's what I'd done. And that's a simple, and
That
that's how it
is
was.
an amazing story, and that sounds like the best $50 ever spent.
Oh,
It,
well, sure was at the time. I felt, it was quite emotional,
but
but
it's
it's really
like
good.
almost like it was meant to be. It's a
Well,
really
something, yeah, something like sort of just triggered, something just triggered in that little moment. And I didn't think about it there and then. I just thought, okay, it's just one of them weird little sort of scenarios that you just go through when you're traveling. But for when I was back home and started to paint, I thought about this woman. I thought, whoa, something's happened here.
so obviously you then went on to teach yourself to paint,
Yeah.
as opposed to going to art school. What was the reason behind that choice?
Well, basically the reason was I was just painting and was my mother used to say to me, just find what you love and just enjoy it,
Yeah.
and just do it. And for when I came back from Australia, I was a completely different person. I began to paint and I really enjoyed it. And that was my passion and it just grew and grew and grew. And like because I started to buy hundreds of books and started to feed my mind with all this knowledge of just painting and like just the pure basics and stuff. And I just really enjoyed the learning process by myself more than anything because it kept my passion alive. Um, so I didn't even think about going to art school. I think I was just enjoying, well, I think I was just enjoying every moment I was painting, and I was just learning and just, yeah, it's just simple like that, really. I thought, just find what you love and just enjoy it.
What made you choose then to paint with oils? Had you tried other mediums too, or it is
Well, to
oils
be
that
honest,
you do, isn't it? Or is it?
yes,
It is
yes. No, it
oils.
is oils. Yeah, yeah. No, like the reason I chose oils was because that's all I know, basically, and that's what I began to teach myself with was just,
Mm.
standard oil paints that I gone, that went down to the shop, bought some real cheap paint, and that's all I've used really. And the reason being is because when I was learning, I'm like reading all this knowledge about these, but like, oh, it's all the greats, the Van Goghs, the
Yeah.
like, like the Rembrandts, et cetera, et cetera. And just they were using these old sort of methods, and especially with the old Dutch masters with still life. It's basically photorealism back in the 14th century, in the 17th century. I thought, how could they achieve that with this oil paint? It's just absolutely remarkable, and that's my love of oil paints. So I think I never really tried nothing else with acrylics. I think I experimented with acrylics twice, and it went completely wrong.
I feel your
So,
pain because
yeah,
I don't get on with them
yeah,
either at all.
yeah, no. Yeah. So I think I just stuck to what I know and just perfected, in that medium. So I want to perfect myself in that medium.
Yeah.
So,
So
so
you've
yeah,
mentioned that you love the sort of old master kind of techniques, and I really
yeah,
relate to that.
yeah.
And so that's not a technique that is actually taught these days in art college. Most of them,
Is it
unless you
not?
go somewhere like Florence or whatever.
Yeah,
And I feel like those techniques are being lost.
yeah.
And actually, that information isn't necessarily that easy to find anymore as to how to learn the techniques. So
No, it's not.
how did you go about that?
So basically, yeah. So like, well, first of all, it's just like you have to be painting every day. Like, and that's even if you have a day job, a night job, you have to be painting every day. Like, because practice obviously makes perfect, like with the old saying.
Mm.
But the stuff like that I learned was basically looking on YouTube night after night, looking for hours on different techniques and basic how to mix paint, what to use, what color goes with this, and I had to learn the color charts and all the basics, but like I think my main sort of learning thing is by looking on these social media sites like you have the Instagram, the Facebook, and you research the like most famous artists that are currently working now, present, and I just look at their photos that they put up, and I learn by what they're doing and seeing on how they're set up, what sort of paints are they using by looking at photographs and like and then what do they use to sort of steady their hand for like for a hand rest and stuff like that. I think you can learn so much just by looking at one photo of someone just in their studio. And that's all I did was just read hundreds of books about all different kinds of art history, and just looking at different sort of social media sites and just learning that way, because obviously as I'm dyslexic, so by going into like school or something like that, which I hated, so
Oh, me too.
gosh almighty, yeah, I know. So it's absolutely, so I just found a different way of learning basically. And that was just purely just by just watching other people sort of just paint, on
Yeah.
YouTube and stuff. And
It's
yeah.
it's so interesting listening to you talk because I almost feel like I'm having a conversation with myself,
Yes.
and
Yeah, no, I
and
can imagine.
and I really related to you on. We'll go into the program in a little bit and why I wanted to
Sure.
particularly interview you, but certain things you're saying, like and like when you were talking about looking at paintings on social media. Now, yeah, we obviously look at the painting, we think lovely
Of
painting,
course.
like to do that, blah blah blah, but what's really interesting what you just said is that I would spend more time looking at what's on the artist's little table, the mediums they're using, the
Yeah,
brushes,
right.
and the paint brands and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I'll be looking at that as much as I would the painting because you can learn, like you say, you can learn such a lot. So yeah, we're
Oh,
very, very similar in that way too. It's
so
interesting.
much. Yeah, like especially with the paints, because when I first started off, I was on the couch with my little canvas on my knees,
Mm,
and I was buying like real cheap, so £1 a tube paint, and the work was pretty crappy. And I thought, oh, this is just no hope, because I have a personality where I want to be, well, if when I do something, I want to be the best at it,
yeah,
and and then I realized that if you buy better quality paints by looking at these famous artists and stuff, then your work actually does improve because the quality of paints and the different terps and the different glazes you're going to buy, it's all about just observing the photos and stuff, and you learn
mm,
so much that way.
mm. Do you work from photos in general, or do you sometimes paint from life, or
Yeah, so it's well, in the first 2 years, I was just experimenting, obviously, just experimenting with all different sorts of painting, and
yeah,
and that was just done by photos. Yeah, just I
yeah,
would I would simply take a picture, well, just off my mobile phone, and
mm,
I still do. That's all I do. I don't like, because I can't afford a real fancy camera, so
no.
so I use my iPhone. I take the picture for what I want to paint, and I just take 1,000 screenshots of certain pieces of the whole thing, and I just paint off my phone, and
Yeah.
that's purely, that's how it is. So,
So tell me how you settle or why you chose to paint in a photorealism style then, as opposed to, I mean, obviously
gosh,
these days there's so many styles, isn't there? There's all the abstract and
oh,
there's,
yeah.
as you learnt, particularly when you went onto the program, the big painting challenge. But what do you love about photorealism? Because I don't know about you, but I think things are changing now. But certainly myself, over the last sort of 10 years or so, I have faced criticism in the past because people are sort of saying, well, you might as well take a photo. What's the point?
Ah,
And it's
yes,
one of
yeah,
those things, I grit my teeth. I think, oh, but
yeah, I know. I've had the same thing, and it's so
you get
annoying, isn't it?
criticism, don't you? Because of
Of
it. And
course, yeah.
yeah. So tell me then, what is it that drew you to it?
Well, it's not, yeah. So basically, I was just doing loads of Disney stuff and just whatever, and like loads of different sort of surrealism I was quite into before my early stages. I was doing all sorts, with Salvador Dali. But photorealism came to me when actually, so my brother came up to the studio and he said to me, like he looked at my painting, he said, "Callum, I still see brush marks on your painting." I was like, well, well, this is, well, of course, because it's a painting, still, like this, of course you're going to see brush marks. And then, like, from that point, then I wanted to prove him wrong, When he was next coming up to the studio, I wanted to have him thinking that, oh gosh, wow, okay, so so is that a painting? Because I can't see the brush marks anymore.
Mm,
And I think it just stemmed from there because I wanted to prove him wrong, and it's just as simple as that. And then that's when I sort of looked into photorealism, and then started buying more books about photorealism, and then that's when I really fell in love with it because photorealism, like you said, people come up to me and think, oh yeah, but I can take a photograph, and just it's the same thing, and then just enlarge it, but at the same time, it's not because it's your photograph that you're taking, and it's your personal photograph, and you're tweaking what your subject needs to be like with different lights and whatever. Well, like the way I see it is that you're just using a basic stick, a stick with a bit of hair on the end, and then you're turning that into a photograph, and like you're challenging people just like to think that what that's a painting, and like that's what I want to prove people. I enjoy proving people wrong, because I think it's the challenge. I love
Yeah.
to challenge myself, and I think that was the best way to, well, I think to learn quickly is to land yourself in the deep end and go for the most hardest sort of painting form there is, like skillfully wise, and then, well, then you learn very quickly, and that's why I've only been painting for about 2 years and 1 month now, and you just learn so quick by challenging yourself, and the amount of mistakes you make, you learn from each time. I think
Absolutely.
that's the main reason. So,
I mean, I don't know about you, but when people sort of say I paint in a photorealism style, but what I actually do, and I wonder if this is the same for you, but there's certain elements of it I'm not so keen on. So perhaps maybe the
yeah.
colour of whatever the backdrop, the wall or whatever might be a sludgy grey colour, but I don't want that. I want to, in that wall somewhere will be, I'll be able to see some kind of colour that I like, and
Yeah.
I'll pick that out, and then I'll push back what I don't like about it. So essentially, although it is photorealism to a point, it's also my own spin on it. I'm painting it as as I
Yes.
see it, not how necessarily it is. Are you the same?
And that's extremely important,
Yeah,
because like so I learned that quickly as well because like so I don't know if you know my Milky Bar packet. And that was
I
my very
do.
first
Yeah,
yeah. So that was my first photorealism try. That's my first go at it, and that was the first thing I did.
and that ended up
And
in the
yeah,
papers, didn't it? That one, didn't
yeah,
it?
with it, yeah. And then I had like the Nestle van turn up the following day with a big box of Milky Bar chocolates for me and stuff because I so I felt it's hellish. It's quite funny, but yeah, it was lovely to have, well, like the big brand as Nestle is,
Oh,
to sort of
absolutely.
just approach me with a massive big box of chocolates. So it's quite a
Yeah.
nice little but no, the reason, like, it's like you said with the background, so the Milky Bar packet was just on like a purely white background, and it just didn't bring the packet didn't sort of pop, you know what I mean?
Mm.
So it was like to put that turquoise greeny color like on the background, and then all of a sudden like the yellows and the reds of that packet just popped out immediately, and that's my own spin, and by doing the Skittles with the black and the purple background, like that was my own spin because that's
Mm.
what I felt was needed to be put on to bring out the packet. So so definitely you got to have your own spin.
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely.
important.
And it's funny because I think these days people are always sort of saying, oh, you need to break the rules. You need to, and I sort
Yeah.
of think, yeah, but surely you've got to learn those rules before you can break them.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
No,
it's
you're
almost
like you're
like,
dead on.
yeah, at art school they just skip it. They don't even
Yeah.
teach you the rules to break, and yet they're
Really.
wanting you
Yeah.
to break them. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
interesting. But a lot of your paintings, like you say, tend to be a still life. So particularly like your packet of sweets and whatnot. But
Yeah.
I know that you're currently working on a Peaky Blinders inspired painting, aren't you?
I
So
am indeed.
yeah, and
So
so first of all, when I saw that, I actually thought that I was looking at a photograph of what you were going to paint.
well,
That
that's
was my
good.
yeah, that was my first impression. And then I looked closer and thought, and it wasn't even the painting that gave it away; it was the words that you'd written about it. And I thought, oh my god, that is actually a painting. So
Well, that's great to hear, obviously, because like every photorealist wants to, get that reaction. That's what
mm,
that's all we're after. Just like yourself as well. If someone says to you, "What? That's a painting,"
yeah,
then you've already done your job, haven't you, in a way?
yeah.
But
But what was your inspiration then for that
oh,
particular painting? Because I've not seen you do that kind of thing before, unless I've missed something.
no, no, no. It's the like it's Piggy Blinders. So this is a brand new thing. But basically, uh, well, so I'm living in south of France now. But obviously, 10 weeks ago, when I was, well, I think that we were renting this farmhouse in Wales, and it had no heating, and I was currently on the same canvas. There's a painting that I started, which was underneath my Piggy Blinders painting that I'm on now. And I started painting a big bag of Dorito packet with these Marvel characters sitting with sweets, and it was going to be, I sketched it all out. I must have spent about 200 hours, just on this one painting so far. And I didn't, and obviously because we had no heating, the frost, came to the studio, and there was no hardly like there's single glazed windows, and the frost damage just absolutely destroyed my painting. So I had to get rid of that. So then so that was quite a blow. So I went downstairs, sat around with my family. It was like really, really cold, and it was like about 7 o'clock at night. We put on this new series called Peaky Blinders, and straight away I just thought, like something just clicked. I just thought, okay, because I'm getting fed up of these sweet packets. They're quite boring looking. I've done that. Okay, they were great, but at the same time, like I really want to experiment now when I'm at this age, young,
Yeah.
all this different stuff, so then I can develop as an artist. So I thought, so this idea came to me where I'd have this sort of black and white, sort of rustic looking old Birmingham street Peaky Blinders sort of thing going on in the background, but still having my twist of photorealism placed in the foreground. So it's all a big experiment. So I still don't know if it's going to be, if it's going to pull off or not, because it's still a massive gamble, because you don't know what the foreground objects will look like with the background. But at the same time, I wanted to do something present and something that everyone's absolutely going crazy about at the present time. And it's something which I love to do as well. And it's something different.
And where did you get the reference from?
Like the actual photograph.
Yeah.
So simply, if you watch Peaky Blinders, I think at the beginning of it, I think of every season, there's like you have Tommy Shelby where he's walking to his little house, on the street with all these different people, and I basically paused it, and then I got out my phone and just simply took a photo of the TV. And that's all I did. I just pressed pause and just took the photo with and that was it.
Is it monotone, that painting? Is it kind of
It
monotone?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
So
is.
it's almost like sepia, isn't it? Sort of sepia.
So I want it to look like a blurred background, because I don't want it to look like photorealism at all. So background's very important if I don't do photorealism, because it's by having this blurred sort of background is going to give my still life objects at the front this photorealism look, and then obviously then photorealism sort of objects will be perfectly sort of painted obviously in photorealism. But so that's why it looks like this vintage blurry black and white sort of old photograph, and that's what I want it to look like.
Well, you've succeeded already from what I can tell. It's fantastic.
It's demanding.
Yeah, I bet. So what made you then? I know that a lot of people are going to be really interested to learn about this. You took part, didn't you, in the big painting challenge?
Yes.
Which I love. I watch every year, even though it's so far removed from anything I would ever do. And what made you apply to take part in that? And the reason I'm so interested to learn about this is because you and I are very similar in style, in the fact that we paint the way we paint. Yeah. And when I watch that program, I just think that is like not just stepping out of your comfort zone. That's kind of like getting on a plane and sort of going 1,000 miles away from your comfort zone. And that would frighten me to death. So I think it was a really brave thing for you to take part in. So what made you do that?
Well, trust me, first of all, it was horrendously scary.
Did you just go online and apply, first of all?
No, I didn't apply. So I didn't apply for the show at all. So in fact, I never heard about the show in my life.
Right. Okay.
So that's so people don't know that, I don't think. But so basically, what it was, I was currently working, because I'm a stonemason, I was working on the building site. And like this local sort of art gallery just near, I think just down the road, and she was holding like this amateur competition, where sort of like 20 amateur artists, could just place their works, like just in this gallery. And I left work straight away, got my art, and went straight to this gallery. And outside the front door, this woman, the big director of this gallery said to me, "Sorry, but your work can't be allowed in this competition because." Well, first of all, because you can tell that you're not going to art school because of the structure, of your paintings. It's not right. You can tell that you're not a trained artist. I said, well, but this is just an amateur competition. You didn't specify that. So just so that she denied my work basically. So I went back into the van and went straight back to site. I went to start laying blocks down a trench, and I got a phone call, and it's from the BBC saying that they had seen my work on Instagram and that they would like me to go down for an audition for this BBC show, Big Painting Challenge, the following day. I then put down the phone on them, thinking it was my mates doing a prank call. So yeah, so I waited half an hour, just thinking, oh, that's just my mates mucking about, because I had no contact. I think I had no caller ID, so I called them, so I couldn't call them back. So they phoned me, and I said, no, it's the actual BBC. I want you to come down for the audition. So I was absolutely in shock because I was more thinking not because of the show, but it was more to do with getting my work to be seen by a much bigger audience, and that was what, and that's everyone's dream, and so that was what it was. So I went down the following day to Cardiff, and like there was about loads of different sort of auditions all around the country, and one I went to in Cardiff was about 250 people. And I went down. It was like a 9-hour thing. We had to be interviewed for this, like do what you're gonna do, basically, sort of on the show, but just do it in the, like to see if you're sort of camera, not camera shy, and all this. And
So you
did
had to
that.
paint. You actually had to paint in the
Yes,
auditions, right?
yeah, no, it's like the paint and the film you're painting and stuff. You need to do like this big interview as well, and so I was just purely there to meet other artists and just purely there to have, well, just a good day out, really. That's my honesty, because I thought, it's people who I know are basically carpenters, plumbers, and bricklayers, and I don't know anyone, in the art
Creative.
world at all. So I thought, well, this would be a good chance to get, so I did that, and basically, yeah, that's what it was. And about 3 days later, I got a phone call saying that, Callum, would you be the last, that we've selected you to be in the last 10 out of, well, thousands of people. So I was absolutely shocked and very scared and nervous at the same time, because then I looked into the show and what they actually did. I thought, oh gosh, this is not me.
Did you watch back
Like,
on old episodes to see about
yeah,
it?
no, I had to, like, yeah, well, like the minute I went down for the audition, like, well, I think the same night I went back and I just stayed up to about 1 o'clock watching like the whole season,
Yeah,
and I thought, oh gosh, this is going to be challenging, but I then thought again, it's all about the publicity, for me. Then it's all about getting my work out there,
absolutely. Yeah.
and so that's what it was, yeah.
I mean, that those 3 days when you were waiting, did you actually think that you would? Was there an inkling that?
Gosh, no, no, I completely forgot about it. I was back on the building site the following morning at 6 a.m. I completely forgot about it. I was just there. I generally thought it was a good day out, and it's whatever happens, happens.
Just
And
quickly
so yeah.
stepping back just a bit, I just want to go back to when you talked about your work being denied in that gallery.
Yeah.
There was just one sentence you said there, and it was when you said, they've said it's just not right. You can tell it's
Yeah,
not right. That kind of thing really annoys me, because I think
yeah,
define right. What
exactly.
is right, and what and who is anyone to say that a piece of art is wrong in any way?
Well, that's right. Especially the big director from this gallery that I rushed into, and in fact it was my Skittles and my Milky Bar painting that wanted to be put in there.
Yeah.
And she said to me on the steps of the entrance of this place, she said to me, um, like, there's no structure to it, the drawing's all wrong. I said, well, look, like, it's photorealism is the next thing to, and so I think architecture. Like, photorealism is the most sort of like the drawing goes into it. It is just pure mathematics.
Yeah.
So I work out all the angles. I sketch everything by hand, and I said to her, well, as I'm going to prove you wrong. And I used that feel, what she said to me about the structure and the composition of it and the proportions. She was going on about it. And I just said, as I'm going to prove you wrong. And I've used that every day as my fuel, to strive, in every way I can, because that's so negative criticism like that to my work. I think it feeds me, like it feeds me, it makes me more hungry to prove these people wrong.
Me too. Yeah,
So
I get that.
so yeah.
I do get that.
Okay.
Yeah, that whole sort of thing about not getting accepted into a gallery, or some people don't get accepted into art school, and I do think that a lot of people who are into sort of photorealism painting don't get accepted, because basically a lot of art schools are wanting just people that are willing to be really experimental.
Yeah, no, I know what you're saying. It's like but like I think the art school want the people to be learning with different textures, different materials, and different techniques. Where like for the photorealists, we just want to focus and master far trade,
Yes.
and I don't think they like that. But then there could be certain schools, like there could be certain realism schools out there I know of in Paris and stuff, where
Yeah.
that'd be quite good and quite sort of interesting, because they just focus on realism
Yeah.
and focus on that.
Oh, I
What,
wouldn't say no to an art school like that.
no, no, I
But
know, yeah, that'd be brilliant,
you've got to
but
be
there's not
very.
many.
No, it's really expensive as well, isn't it?
Yeah, they're like 24,000 euros a year, and I'm like, well,
No.
I'm just a stonemason. I just
Yeah.
struggle to get by. Like, I just do my best to get by. So,
So with your style in mind, then, obviously on the program, it just could not be further from what they were encouraging you to do. So tell us then about some of the challenges that you were set on the program.
yeah, well, yeah. So I think the first week of the show, I had a massive chest infection. I was quite ill, but like I know it probably didn't seem it. And the whole thing with the movement when I was painting the dogs in the second week, it was just I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
And so all I kept on saying was, Callum, stick to what you know, stick to what you know. And then you have the mentors, Diana, which is lovely, and Pascal, they're both lovely, but they were saying basically stop blending, stop doing it photorealistic, and stop, and I had to just train myself quickly to get out of that just for this sort of show, because obviously I needed to produce quick art, which I'm not good at. Um, but so challenges like movement, and I think in week 5, which I produced that painting with the black silhouettes, which looked like flying Peter Pans with the bright orange background and a
And the purple
purple
sweeps.
abstract. Yeah,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
was just so hard for me to
Yeah.
get my paintbrush and mix this paint, but it it felt really good. So doing that though, especially with the purple stripes and the swing motions, it felt really good. But I stepped back and I thought, oh my gosh, this is going out to the public of Great Britain. How embarrassing, like this. I'm so self-critical as a person, because I
Me
think you
too,
have
yeah.
to be. You
Mm.
have to be very self-critical to learn, and I think that's the best way to learn quickly. And I stood back at all my works every single week. I just stood back. I said to my mum the following night, well, on the same night, I said to her, "Look, I'm going home. I'm going home because absolutely such awful like work." But I think yeah, it's just the whole thing was challenging itself for me, I think.
Yeah, because I wondered if there was ever a point during the filming, that's what I was going to ask about, whether you ever at any point regretted entering and thought, oh God.
Well, like that would be the very first day, like
Yeah.
up in Glasgow when we've been, I think we're painting inside the beer distillery, and I just, it's just that's when I thought, Callum, what am I doing? Like this is, this could jeopardize me, or this is not a good move. But then I just thought, right, just give it my best shot. Look, it's good publicity, it's whatever, and it's a good chance to maybe learn something. But if I'm honest with you, I didn't learn much about painting on the show because I was too focused on about getting my paintings done in time.
Yeah.
Like when they say, did the mentors help with techniques? Well, as I already know that because I already taught myself at home.
Yeah.
But the stuff that they teach you is just basically, just different ways to handle the paint, which is
Mm.
good, I guess. But so painting wise, I didn't learn much because I was,
Yeah. I mean, like me, I was in my 30s before I started painting, but actually I already
really,
knew who I was. I knew what I wanted to do. And I think when you're
oh,
sort of 16, 17, yeah, you do experiment. You want, but there
sure,
comes a point in everyone's life where they know who they are. You know who you
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so, there's no point in trying to change someone into something that they're
No,
not. And I don't know about you, but I think it's really, really important to be true to yourself on a canvas,
Oh
whether
gosh.
that is,
Yeah.
you know, doing something completely random and bonkers or doing something photorealistic. It's got to come
Yeah.
natural to you. Otherwise, it's not a real piece
Oh,
of
it
art,
has.
is it? It's just,
No, especially like with like with the photorealism, all the artists who do photorealism have all the hours like that we spend on one piece. It has to be true to yourself. Otherwise, there's just no point painting.
oh, you'd be bored, wouldn't you?
It, well, you'll be bored, and you got to be painting something that you enjoy and what you are
Yeah,
interested in doing.
yeah.
But it's like you said before about um, finding on find out on who you are as a person. Well, I started traveling when I was 18 and traveled for about 4 years constantly. And then I came back at 21 or 22, 21, a completely different person, you know? And I was just completely different. And I found myself when I was traveling. I think that's when you see so many stories of people traveling that go and find yourself, travel, and it's true
Yeah.
because I was like this like this skinny little sort of insecure kid and like who had no like who lived in the hills of Wales and like just know my next door neighbors was just around the corner but meeting hundreds of people traveling and just then you can be yourself and then you can be true to yourself, so it's very important that I went through that progress, I think.
Absolutely, and when you were sort of talking about in the competition that you sort of felt so out of your comfort zone and were sort of feeling almost, I presume, some points you must have felt a lot of comparisonitis. You know, I know I would if I was
Yeah,
in
no,
that
I did.
situation. But I was sort of thinking when I watched the program, I was thinking, okay, but if you put the boot on the other foot and all of these people who are more naturally inclined to paint in a sort of abstract way,
Yeah,
but then if you were trying to get them to paint in a more photorealism way, then it would
yeah.
be exactly the same but the opposite way round, wouldn't it?
Yeah, no,
It
exactly, because that's
because they
yeah.
wouldn't be able to do it, or they.
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah. See, well, like, just and so I feel like, and so I could paint. Well, obviously I couldn't paint it, but so if I had more time, then I could probably paint what so quick painters could paint. But then at the same time, I don't think they could paint photorealism
No, I think you'll
because
find a lot of the
because it
tutors can't.
no exactly because it's probably the most what's the highest skill, isn't it, with the paintbrush, I think. But it's basically I think for me it was the hardest out of everyone on the show, because for example, like you had people on the show who painted quickly previously to the show, and that's all they did for years,
Yeah,
and they had experience because I was the youngest on the show, and so I think the whole show was the hardest for me because of my photorealism side to me,
I
if that makes
agree.
sense.
I totally agree, and it's actually, like I say, I wanted to speak to you in particular out of all of the contestants, and I think it's because I completely can relate to how you must have felt in that
Yeah.
environment, because I would have been 100 times worse probably.
No,
Because
no, trust me, like you wouldn't because
but
just there and then in the moment, you just got to do what you got to do, and then you just got to give it your best shot. But
they kept
it's
saying
very
to you,
hard.
didn't they? A few occasions I kept hearing them, so the judges say to you, you know, you really need to, why don't you go to art school? Get into art school. It's great being surrounded by all these people. And I just kept thinking, no, don't spoil him. No.
Yeah, no, but this is one of the questions where I get thrown about like the questions probably get this is probably once a day question for me, and I got to sort of answer it. But it's like people say to me, "Why don't you go to art school? Look, there's great." And I'm not against art school.
No,
I
me
think it's
neither.
been there for hundreds of years. I think it's absolutely brilliant for different people, and
Yeah,
like I say, each to their own. But
absolutely.
but then I think like the whole art school is great if I was to go, which I'm not going to go, but it'd be good, and so I'd go for the social contacts of meeting other people, and because it's all about contacts in the art world, I think. It's about who you know and what galleries this, and they watch you, and the lecturers might sort of like approach you and think you're good, and then so I think that would be the only reason if I was to go, then it'd be for the contacts I might meet in the future. But then again, you're not guaranteed that either, which just doesn't do it for me. But like I said, I'm not against it, but it's just I hated school with with a passion. I never took artwork. My teacher never really, so I wasn't bothered. I was a bit naughty in the class. I always spent most of the time outside the classroom. And I just never school because my dyslexia was super hard, and I just was working at a very young age doing my bricklaying for my father's business.
Yeah.
So the whole sort of school and academic thing is just not good for me. But at the same time, people keep saying to me, Callum, it's not academic, it's not like school. But I know for a fact, as if I go there and they give me a bit of free will, then I prefer doing my own free will in my own free time and what I want to paint without being told what to do.
Absolutely.
Because you know what I mean, I just don't like the whole teacher student thing. It's just not my thing. So
No, I'm with you. I know exactly what you mean. I agree. So
the thing I liked, just one thing I just quickly add.
yeah,
Like one thing I could, well, like which I'd be 100% up for, would be like a mentor for about like just a couple of months a year, like because I feel like I need someone with experience
yes,
to sort of like to give me little tips here and there, because like there are some, well, there's loads of stuff that you can't learn on, like on the social media, like on the YouTube, you can't learn it because I've tried looking for it. It's like for when you want to take on a massive canvas and like you want to take on a massive big background. That's what I find it hard is sometimes where I start painting and then the next day it dries so quick you can't blend into it. And so I want to know how these sort of hyperrealism artists sort of paint a portrait and they start and they start from the head. But how does the paint stay wet for a very long time so they can spend very high intense detailed time on this one section and still be wet for them to blend into. It's that sort of stuff I would like to have like little tips, here and there.
yeah, and I do think artists are very forthcoming with advice when other artists need some because we're all different.
Yeah.
But yeah, these days, if you want a mentor, all you need to do is ask someone and say, "Do you know what? I need some help."
Yeah, like for example, with like so my main inspiration is a guy called Tjalf Sparnaay. I don't know if you heard about him or like heard of him.
No, I haven't.
Oh my gosh, this bloke, he's Dutch. And oh, please, I'll send you the details after this
Yeah, please
podcast.
do, please
But
do.
well, from day one, since I started the Milky Bar packet, this guy has been and it still is and still will be for the rest of my life probably. But he basically was a PE teacher back in the 70s
Yeah,
or something. And he was working and he's a and then he's self-taught photorealist.
yeah.
And he's now making 100,000 plus off one piece a year,
Wow.
and he's in the major sort of galleries in New York, and he's self-taught. He didn't go to art school. He was a PE teacher. So it's like, so I say to people, well, okay, yes, but look at this guy. He was just a PE teacher, and he's now making it. In my eyes, he's the best photorealist in the world.
Yeah.
And you have others like Roberto Bernardi, was it Roberto Bernardi, and that's Bernardi and Spence. You have all these as well, which are absolutely my idols.
Yeah.
But yeah, but half of them didn't go to art school because you can't teach photorealism. Like photorealism is something that you have to learn yourself because they
Yeah.
don't teach you this in art school.
My uncle
So
Danny, he was a really fantastic artist and sculptor. He was actually a stonemason as well, but
is he? Good for
yeah,
him.
well, he's passed away now. But
Oh,
I always remember him saying to me one day, I mean, he kind of discouraged me from going to art school because he said to me, Sandra, he said, I can always tell if I walk around a gallery and look at, say, 20 paintings. He said, I can always tell the self-taught ones. And he
really?
said, and he said, but it's for good reason, not for bad reason. He said, you'll see all of the other paintings that are doing everything everyone's doing at the art school.
Yeah.
They've all got the same tips, they've all got the same little tricks that they use,
Yeah.
and then there'll be one that just stands out because it's a bit different and you can't put your finger on what it is, but it's because they've not had so much influence And so
yeah,
there's something a bit different.
so
Doesn't
they've
make
thought
it
outside the
better.
box.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
so
make it
yeah,
worse or better. It just makes it slightly different.
yeah,
So he was saying that in a really positive way, saying actually, as much as art school is great, you don't need it. You don't need it. And there are
no,
some self-taught artists out there who are so brilliant. And also of what I would say is, as I've said 100 times before, I'm sure on this podcast, but going to art school doesn't necessarily make a good artist, and not going to art school doesn't make someone
that's
a
right.
bad artist either.
That's very true. And I think what your uncle is very right. He's quite a smart man because with the self-taught people and the taught people, there's no difference. But like, there's a difference. But at the same time, the people who are self-taught have to think outside the box. And by doing that, to me, that's that's art. That's art, and that defines art to me. It should come from the heart and the soul and what you're interested in.
And
And that's the
do
best.
you think a self-taught artist then, do you think that they are more likely to paint in a way that comes natural to them, and therefore portray the real art that's come from their own heart, rather than someone who's been to art school?
I think so, yes, because in theory, because just when you're in a classroom painting with others, so not to judge because I've not been through it, but for what I can assume is that for when you're in a class and you've got a lecturer sort of showing you different techniques, then you're all doing the same thing. And I think they call that zombie art, don't they? They call it zombie art. And that's something which you shouldn't do, like to be a zombie artist, where it's the way you paint something and it looks like someone else's work.
Yeah.
For me, that's probably the worst. If I got to that level where I'm copying someone else's work or getting very similar, and it can happen in photorealism as well, where it's where I'm thinking my work's starting to look like someone else's, and that's zombie art. Where so the self-taught people don't have that sort of influence, and they have to learn and look and observe in different ways and seek inspiration from different things, and they just have no influences. So they do what comes from their heart and they do what they're interested in. I think that's one of the main things
And
about
it's
that.
funny because you always kind of think the people who do paint in say like an abstract way, and I do love those sort of paintings. I
Oh
love
no, don't
looking
get me
at
wrong,
them.
I do.
I
Yeah.
really do. I enjoy looking at all those loose and expressive paintings. It's a skill in itself, and not
No,
everybody can do it. It's just not me.
no,
But I don't have any problem with it. I have it on my wall, But
no.
I almost feel, and I don't know about you, but I almost feel like the rebel because I'm painting in
Yeah.
the least rebellious way.
I'm always the rebel.
Do
That's
you-
like but no, like that's quite, yeah, that's funny you saying that because and so every time because they probably stereotypical photorealists to be it's quite nerdy, like that don't because that's probably the way that people look at us in a way because
We're breaking the
it's something
rules.
that yeah, because we're breaking the rules. We're not doing everything like the same that they do in art school. But then at the same time, photorealists are complete nerds, really,
Yeah.
because we're there hours and hours and hours when everyone else is partying or eating or sleeping. We're there painting,
Yeah.
and then we're perfecting our work. But then it's like there's a twist where it's where you got like the abstract artists. Now, don't get me wrong, I've read all about Jackson Pollock, all about these big American abstract artists, the most famous to I've read them all because they interest me on their lives that they had, and like the styles and what they mean. And so I love all sorts of artwork. But
Yeah.
it's a bit like you, I guess. It's just like, what do you enjoy doing and what do you want the world to see what
Yeah.
you're doing? And that's all I want.
Like me, I want to. If somebody buys a Sandra Busby painting or a Callum
Yeah.
Stephen painting, you want it to be a painting from Callum
Yeah.
Stephen's heart, not from something he's been told that he needs to paint like, which is
No,
very
that,
different,
no, that's spot on. That's
D-
spot on.
Tell me then, when you took part in the Big Painting Challenge, obviously it's over now. Do you think that it has been helpful in the long run to you? And I don't mean,
No.
I'm talking about for your technique. Do you think
Yeah.
it's helped you move forward in your painting at all?
Um, no.
No.
That's that question. I'd say no. It's not just no. It's basically the techniques. As I didn't. Well, like I said before, I didn't really have time. yes, we had them little master classes where where we did the experimental things with mud, which was really really fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that because that reminds me of my childhood when I'm playing with my brother making like up in the woods with muds and stuff like that, and like charcoal with a black piece of paper, and you have to bring out the white
Mm.
light, stuff like that. I think so I carry with me my knowledge for quite a while, but painting wise with a paintbrush, no, because I'm still doing what I do. I'm still blending that. As much. I think it quite annoyed Diana, on the
Yeah,
show it
and
too. But
there was one scene, and she was saying stop blending, and it was
yeah,
interesting because you were holding a brush which I could not live without, and I have a little brush.
I
It's
love
the
it.
cheapest little brush, and it's actually, I think it's a watercolor brush somewhere
Yeah,
like W.H. Smith, and it's a
yeah,
little fan brush, and
yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like,
they're the best brushes.
I love
Like
them.
especially for blending, and like the cheapest ones are the
Yeah,
best because,
they are.
yeah, no, they are. They really are because like since I went through so many different kinds of hairs with hog hair
Yeah, oh, I
and
hate
all
those.
these different, but I just found the hairs just come out onto the canvas, and you're spending half your time plucking these little things.
Yeah.
And I just think like with the cheaper brushes, they're there to do a job. They're there to function to do the job. It's blending, and that's pretty what it is. So it's technique wise, not really,
No,
but
no.
it's good to observe other people's painting and especially on how they sort of like would attack a painting.
Mm.
So
I felt you were so brave in your choice of subject when you did the final, because
oh God.
out of all of the subjects, that crane is the last thing in the world that I would have gone to. I thought, what are you doing?
Oh, I know. Like my brain, I just don't know. I think I was just pressure. Well, I'd like to think I was pressurized into it, but I wasn't. So I think my mind was just saying, right, Cal, look, because I think well, most of them are going to do the ship or the water with a ship in it. So let's do a crane. Let's go for the most complex thing, with the reflection as well. And then I started the piece and it went completely wrong because I wasn't concentrating. And I think the pressure just got to me in the end. It's probably my worst piece of art throughout the whole show. And it was the final. So it was just my luck.
What? How? Have you kept all of the paintings that you did in the
Well, the thing
show?
is, I think it was no, because they had to keep them,
Oh,
but
did
they're
you?
gonna send. I think they send them to me in the next few months.
Okay.
Anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah.
But no, I thought you were really brave. But I've got to say, I thought your water. You were amazing at painting water. There was a little painting you did. I think it was a boat, and I know that
Oh, the
the
two
boat
boat reflections. Yeah.
and the actual, it was the water itself, and I thought, wow, that's brilliant, really, really
Oh,
good.
yeah. So I think I know the what that's done
I think
up
they
in
said the boat, it was a little blue boat.
yes, up in Loch Lomond. There's like with the ripples, with the
Yeah,
green ripples, with the
that's it.
ivory sort of looking. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. But that was done in a storm. It was quite. It was
yeah,
hellish dramatic, but
yeah. I wonder how much you cost them in canvases.
yeah, oh God, well, especially me. Like every week I went through like four or three, especially the second week. I went, like in the forest. I thought, oh, it really got to me with like
Yeah,
especially with the pressure because I thought, oh
I
gosh,
could not
I could,
paint under
you know,
pressure. Painting under pressure must be a nightmare, because that's the
oh,
last thing you
it's
want when you're painting, isn't it? Is pressure.
yeah, it is. I think that was just for just for TV, obviously, but
Mm,
like for real art shouldn't be like that. It should
absolutely not.
be,
No.
of course not, but.
So yeah, because I would have said that if you had done all of those challenges, but you
Yeah.
had done in your own time under your own sort of charge, if you like, the results would be very, very different, I think.
Well, yes. Yeah, no, but well, hopefully there'd be photorealism. But then again, like the water is
Yeah.
extremely difficult. I think I did it once, water and
Mm.
photorealism, and it wasn't photorealism. It was when I don't know if you see my Disney painting that I
I
that I'd
haven't seen
done.
that one, no.
No, but this is like a bit of a waterfront there, by it's really hard to do, and
Yeah.
I think that's why I'm painting Peaky Blinders, but with glass objects I'm painting now, is because I really want to paint glass because I've not done it before.
Oh, you'll love it.
and I can't. But I know I'm gonna love it. But at the same time, I keep looking at my reference photos, for when I'm about to do it, and I send them to you because they look so complex.
Yeah.
This is unreal, but it's all about the outcome. But I really want to challenge myself using glass and then doing the sea or just doing different stuff in photorealism.
Glass, I loved. I mean, as you probably know, it's my favourite subject to
No, I've
paint.
seen your work. It's absolutely brilliant, by the way.
Oh,
I
thank
have
you.
seen it. I've checked out your Instagram. It's absolutely amazing.
I'm not overly active on Instagram because the thing is with you as well probably is that I'm not, because paintings take a long time. It's not easy, is it? I mean, they say, oh, you need to post every day. Well, you can't when you're a
It's
realism painter at
no,
all. You
no,
can't.
no. It's very hard.
No,
It's very
yeah.
hard to try and keep your audience, isn't it? Because
Oh,
especially with
yeah.
the publicity. But like, I
Exactly.
think I've been lucky with the show for the
Mm,
time being for my publicity with that, and
yeah.
it's just well, like for me now, it's about keeping that sort of audience and then keeping them interested. So I do a bit of everything. So when I'm not painting, and I'm waiting for stuff to dry, with my different glazes, and so I would just take a couple of photos of,
Yeah.
just of just whatever really. So
One thing I will say about my technique is that I always paint in a lot of layers, and my paintings always go through what I call the skanky teenage stage. So they go to a point where they are horrible. They
yeah,
are so horrible that I'm almost frightened of going into the studio because I just know they look terrible. But it's pushing past that because it's kind of like
yeah.
it's like walking into a house that you want to buy, but you can't get past the awful decor, and
That's very
it's
well, no,
yeah.
that's very well explained because that's yeah, like but that's how photorealism. As with acrylics, do you specialize in acrylics
No,
or
oils. It is oils.
oils?
Yeah.
Yes, like so. I was reading up on this photorealism thing with acrylics. They dry so quick, don't they?
Yeah.
So you can do thousands of layers a lot quicker than you can do 100 layers with just normal paint. So I found it like so I found when people do their techniques, they place the big objects on first, and then then they just sort of and then each layer goes on and on. Then you put the details in and in and in.
Yeah.
But so I don't work like that. So I used to work with layers, but now it's one layer, and then I give them like my best shot, and then
Yeah.
I keep going over it and over it.
Mm.
So in theory, no, it's about three layers or 4 layers of
Yeah.
thick, of quite thick oil paint.
Yeah.
Where when I come to the glass, I probably just try and land it as best I can in one shot. But then if it's not happy, then I can go on top of it again. But it's very rarely. Well, I touch wood, but and I messed up for the first time last week. I spent 10 hours straight run, straight through 10 hours, and it was the very last touches I messed up, and I had to wash it all off with turpentine.
Oh, it's
And I was
soul
like,
destroying when that happens.
oh, that was the first mistake I've done since I started. Well, yeah, since I started painting,
Mm.
and it just absolutely I just took everything away from me. I was like, oh gosh. But then the following day, I had a fresh mind. I just redid it and it
Mm.
went fine.
Mm.
So,
I'll always remember when my uncle Danny he said to me, you know, not all of your paintings will go well. He said that
no,
they won't. Some of your paintings will not go well.
oh,
Um,
trust me. Yeah,
and it was one of those things that stuck in my head because I think it was the next painting I did after he said that didn't go well, and I think I was ready to put my brushes down and never paint again. But then
yeah,
I thought actually no, he said this would happen, and he
yeah.
was right. And then the next painting was fine. It was great.
That's very true because like I think you have to go through that.
Mm,
But like I'm not saying the mistakes as I've made tons of mistakes, but not in photorealism. But like my experimental stage when I was going through when I first started painting, as I'd be painting something, and it would just I'd mess it up. I'd messed over 50 paintings up,
mm,
and I think that process right there is incredibly important because that's when I learned the most.
yeah.
But I think everyone's got to fail to succeed in their painting,
I totally agree.
achieve that. And that's the basic thing that everyone says, but that's you know
Well, they say it because that's absolutely
well,
true.
it's true, isn't it? That's how it is. So
Yeah, yeah. But it's seeing past those mistakes, and it's seeing
yeah,
past, certainly for me when I'm sort of looking at my painting and it's at that horrible stage, it's being able
yeah,
to see past that and think, okay, but I know it's not going to be like this. It's just that
yeah.
I've got to be subjected to it looking like this till
Like you
till
need
I
a good
finish.
a strong mindset.
Yeah, you do. You do.
You actually do,
You
because
really do.
otherwise, if you keep having like like these negative thoughts, then your painting becomes negative. But then if you keep
Yes,
saying it will be good, this is
it
the
will be
first
fine.
layer, you can fix it,
Mm,
Callum, you can fix it,
yeah.
and that's what it is every night. So it's just it's a big challenge. It's a big ball of fun though, you know.
What I want to know then is how your life has changed since taking part in the show.
Um, well, I think, well, I'm still a bricklayer.
Yeah.
I'm still a stonemason,
Mhm.
so nothing's changed on that front for now, I hope. But I think social media, I've learned about that. So during the show, because I'm quite, well, me and the computers do not get on. And I mean, I'm incredibly old-fashioned like that. So I never really had a mobile phone until I was quite, 16, 17 or something. It never really sort of interested me. So when it comes to like social media, well, lucky for me, I had my mother and my sister who, my sister's been quite well known sort of in the pageant world before.
Right.
So she, she's had to promote herself on social media because that's the way the world's going.
Yeah.
And I think many artists now, especially the ones who became so well known in the 70s with no social media, they've all had to now develop into social media sites to get their bigger audiences. I think that's where I've struggled, but now this show has been on, I've learned how to deal with it and how to promote myself and how to hopefully attract loads more people. And I think that's one thing I think is it's a great tool to know now. And so I'm not materialistic at all, but I think, and so all I want is my artwork to be reached in a lot wider audience. And I know the only way of doing that is social media these days,
Mm.
it, or like unless you're incredibly lucky and you're out in Paris and and this art dealer comes up to you and says, boom, I want you, in this gallery, then that's the only option. But social media is it's a great tool, I think.
Absolutely. I think we're very lucky these days, aren't we, to have
Oh,
it.
incredibly lucky.
But
Yeah.
it's a bit of a pressure though because you are sort of you do feel like sometimes you've got to do it every day and it's just not always that
Yeah.
simple, is it?
No, but like sometimes for when I paint, I put my phone
Mm.
onto this airplane mode,
Yeah.
because I
Oh
don't
yeah. Mine goes
just don't
straight
get
onto
distracted.
do not disturb mode
Oh,
in the
100%.
studio. Yeah.
Have to be
So
concentrate.
you've mentioned that you are also a stonemason and a roofer. So how do you manage to fit that in then around your painting? I mean, what's a typical day like for you?
So I'm a bricklayer by trade. I did 3 years in college. Yeah, when I was 16. So basically, uh, so I wake up at 4 o'clock every morning. I do 3 hours of painting from 4 o'clock to 7, and then I put on my work boots. I do a 9 hour physical graft, and then I come home, quick shower, something to eat, and then I paint till about midnight. And that's been my day for until present day, until I started painting.
No.
So I sleep 4 hours a day, and but like at first, my first week of doing that, I struggled. But then after the first week barrier, I my body developed into that, and I know it's not healthy with no sleep, but and so I feel fine, and I work a physical job as well, and like it's physical and it's mental as well, and so yeah, that's my average day really.
So where's your studio then? It must be. Where do you actually paint?
So my bedroom's just above my studio, because now
Right.
we just moved into our new house in
Yeah.
France. It's all open, so yeah, so got studio below me, and then I got my bed upstairs. So
You must sort of have. I suppose if you live in France now, maybe your friends aren't so nearby, but that would be hard, wouldn't it? If they
uh,
sort of said, "Do you want to go out on Friday night?" and you're like,
yeah, I
"No."
mean, as I used to be, gosh, I know because I have no one here at the minute because my mates will come over, for the summer they'll come over and stuff. But
Yeah.
as I've had to leave, like my mates and stuff back home. But I see, even from when I was back home, I think because I've done loads of partying and gone out with them loads of times, like
Mm.
before I started painting and and I did my backpacking thing and did whatever. But something triggered. I just kept on saying, Callum, I don't want to be a bricklayer all my life. It's because my father had a building business for over 30 years, which I worked for, and it's a hard life,
Yeah.
and And especially if I could do something that, that is less work and I can earn a good living from it, then I'd rather take up that. Do you know what I mean? So that's
Absolutely.
what I keep in my mind every day, and that's why I think I push myself. That's why I get up at 4 o'clock every morning to just hope for that dream, because like it may not even come true, and I'm happy with that. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy to be a stonemason, roofer, and builder for the rest of my days, but as long as I'm still painting every day as well, I don't
Yeah.
mind. I think it would just be a bonus, if I can paint every day that'd be just a pure dream.
Oh,
But
wouldn't it just?
oh
Yeah.
my gosh,
So
like
this timetable of yours, then, I mean, 4 o'clock. That just. I,
that's the best time of day.
yeah, but are you a natural morning person then?
Yeah, not I wouldn't say natural. I just get up. I
You
just
just
get up
decide to
and
do it. That's
but
commitment. Yeah.
yeah, but I mean, sometimes when I get tired, I feel sorry. Well, especially for my mother or my father, when I get a bit sort of irritable. It's like, just keep going, and then I'm like, Cal, take a break. But I'm just like, no,
And
gotta work now.
is this something you've been doing since taking part in the show, or is that something you were doing anyway?
No, so this is something that was my very first day of painting when I came back from Australia.
Oh,
That's when I did
really?
it.
That's what you've been doing the whole time.
So I've been doing it for it's 2 and a bit years now. So
So you're actually probably painting more hours than some full-time painters.
well, yeah, but probably like I did 15 hours yesterday, and that was just yesterday,
Oh, wow.
and then but yeah,
So,
but then at the same time, for when you look at my work, it doesn't look like 15 hours worth,
no.
because I'm spending such vast amount of time on a very small section.
Mm,
And it's very frustrating when you stand back at the end of the session and then you
yeah.
look back at what you've done today. And I'm like, well, then I can see it. But people would be thinking, well, what have you done? You've done 1 inch to an inch square.
Yeah.
So it's like so frustrating in that way. But it's going to be, well, it's all
Yeah.
good.
But there's something to be said for having a job as well, because at least you know that you haven't got to rely on. Because
Exactly.
I've always wondered, if you paint full time as an artist,
Mm.
would that then be a pressure? The pressure that, oh, if I don't get this done, I won't get paid, or if somebody doesn't buy
Yeah.
this painting, I won't have a wage. So I'd kind of want that
Yeah,
safety net of like, I've still
yeah.
got some money coming in.
It's like reinsurance, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I guess when as I think the time where, as if I was to go and paint every day, I think then if I was to do that, then it'd have to be a stable way of doing it. Then I'd have to have a contract with a signed gallerist, or or a special, or like a private sort of art dealer. Then that's the way I'd do it.
Yes.
So I probably produce 2 paintings a year. So if I can get 2 commissions a year, which would be quite well, like in theory, that's easy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so that'd be the only way of sort of reinsuring myself.
Where do you see yourself then? What are your creative goals for the future? Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh, they're not small goals.
No, and they shouldn't be.
Oh
Think
gosh.
big, dream big.
So I'd love to be like to have my work exhibited in well, just all around the world, especially in New York.
Mm,
And that's especially New York because obviously like the guy called was it Louis Measle, the guy who invented the word photorealism, and that's where photorealism stemmed from. So I'd love to see myself, like if I had my paintings hung up on them walls in 5 years or sooner, I hope, but anytime,
yeah.
like that's my ultimate goal, is to be recognized all over the world in different cities and to exhibit for my style. I think that's just a normal sort of, it's like an artist's dream, isn't it? But
Yeah.
especially New York.
Mm. And I always think, if you reach, further than you can ever imagine, then you'll get further than you ever dreamt of.
Yeah, well,
Do
that's
you
a
know what I
good way
mean?
of seeing it.
Mm.
Definitely. And all there is hope, but
Well, and hard
and,
work and
and all you can do
determination
is,
and
yeah,
commitment.
that's right.
And you're
That's
doing all
right.
of those, so.
Yeah, yeah. It's just like you just gotta face. I gotta face. Half the time I have to face reality as well, where there could be a chance where you might not get to that. But
Yeah.
it's always important when I say to people, like you've always got to have something to go to,
Mm.
as otherwise, like I'm sure people had and saw the big names had their goals, and if they reached them or if they didn't reach them, at least they try. At least they tried their best and the hardest. And that's all I want to do, is just give my all.
Well, if you think
And
of
all,
Van
and all.
Gogh, he didn't
Yeah.
reach his
They
goal
did.
until he died.
Yeah, I know, which was, and but what might say that could happen, it could happen. I might chop my ear off. I'm in south of France. I'm here with for where he walked and roamed our fields with sunflowers. We've got sunflower fields here now, right by my house. So, oh gosh, if I go down that route,
Am I gonna receive an ear through the post anytime soon?
oh gosh, you never know. You never know.
But this is the thing about art, isn't it? When you're an
Funny thing,
artist, you don't have to set a time limit, because you don't retire from it being an artist. It's a lifetime thing, isn't it?
yeah.
You doesn't matter if you're not doing that in 5 years. It might be when you're 60, but it doesn't matter. It's just you just continue aiming for it and just keep taking a step forward.
It's fun.
Just quickly, I just want to ask you, because there was another contestant, wasn't there? And he was in his 90s, wasn't he? In the big...
Ray.
And it just goes to show, doesn't it? It's never too
Ray
late to start.
It's never too late. That man was a huge inspiration. Like, obviously, like the whole nation like really enjoyed him, and
Yeah.
like it was just absolutely thrilled. But like, it's just the downtimes, periods, like when you're not filming, it, he'd be out so having a few ales at 3 o'clock in the morning with me, and we'd be drinking about 3 o'clock in the morning, and then we got the film, like filming to do the following day. There's stuff like that people didn't see, and I'm like, is the World War II stories that they were saying about when we were painting in that this big RAF museum, and like we weren't filming, but we were like 10 seconds to start filming, and Ray was actually like, he was looking at this Lancaster bomber, that, and he turned around and said to me, Cal, for when I was your age, and so I was in that plane, going to war, like, what I mean,
Incredible.
I thought, and we just felt so emotional. We had to stop filming and then just regather ourselves, because it was just so powerful. And he was just a great man.
Yeah.
And to be painting at that age, it just goes to show, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It can be whatever and whenever. So
yeah, I mean, art can be anything. It can be just purely for the joy and the pleasure, or it can be because you've got great big goals. It shouldn't matter, should it? And age certainly it shouldn't be an issue. But just out of interest, have you kept in contact with any of the other contestants?
Yes, I have. Yeah, like so Ray's obviously, well, like I've got most of them on like a WhatsApp sort of group. But but mainly like I've got I think Anil will be coming out to see me in south of France this summer.
Fantastic.
I think as well, Susan, the Irish lady.
Yeah.
And I think she's got some friends like in the town just down the road as well, so she'll be coming out. So yeah, so they will be doing some painting together, and I'm pretty sure of that, because I think it's quite important. Every now and then, it's for photorealists, it's nice just to go out into a field and actually pull up an easel and just paint freely, because most of my life so far, like painting, it's like you're so uptight and you're so steady and you've got the highest concentration going on these little bits.
Yeah.
So I have to go out of the studio every 20 minutes or so just to stretch my eyes. And I think after like every painting that I finish, I take up like a small little painting, I go to a field and I just run my hand freely in every direction, go in like an abstract artist, just because it's just important to do that for me. It's just my little...
It's almost like a warm-up to an exercise, isn't it? Except you were brave enough to do that on the television. Most people wouldn't be. I don't think I would be.
Gosh, well, like, if I looked brave, then that's good. But trust me, inside, it was far different. I was panicking, I was pressurized, and I
know.
Oh,
I really did feel your pain, but I just almost felt like it was me, because I just knew how you were feeling. Because I think that's why I really wanted to talk to you about it. Because that's exactly who I am, that person.
Yeah.
So where then can our listeners find out a bit more about you? So I don't know if you've got a website, but also your social media platforms and whatnot.
So I haven't got a website, but I have a Facebook page, which is just simply Callum Jameson, and then
I got confused with that, because you're Callum Stephen, but on Facebook you're Callum Jameson, so I was a little bit confused at first.
Yes. So this is it. So this is my middle name's Jameson. Like well, that's a Scottish side because my dad's Scottish, and it's just named after the whiskey. Yeah. But like, so I'm just wondering like whether it sounds better. So it's more of an experimental thing, really. So there's a Callum Jameson artist on Facebook and on Instagram. I think I think it'd be Callum with the underscore Stephen. Yeah, I'm not
Well,
quite sure.
we'll put links anyway on our show notes on our website. But
Cool.
I could have talked to you for absolutely
I
hours.
I do the same as well, isn't it? It's just when you both got the same passion and same things and paint the same, you could go on and we could be, oh God, it's so great, isn't it?
It has been so fantastic to chat to you, Callum. I've really
No,
enjoyed myself.
no, me too. It's been my pleasure, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And I love what you're doing as well with your podcast as well, because I have listened to a few episodes previously, especially with the art school one. Actually, in fact, it was the last week on yeah, and it's really it's really good stuff that you're doing. So it's
Thank you. I really appreciate that. That's really great to hear.
oh,
Thanks so much, Callum.
oh well, thank you.
Okay, well, have a great day.
Yes, no, and to you as well.
Take care then.
Take care, Sandra.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
It was so lovely chatting to Callum, and I really hope you enjoyed hearing his story as much as I did. Meanwhile, if you're wondering where Tara is, she's on holiday as I record this, but she'll be back for the next episode. Before I go, I just want to run through the July challenges. We have Kick Time July. Kick Time is our brand new monthly challenge and designed for those creatives who would much rather sink their teeth into one big project over the whole month rather than lots of little ones. Every month we will give you a prompt, which is basically a random word, and you can use it to inspire a story, a poem, a piece of art, a piece of music. The list really is endless. So July's prompt is lost. Then we have Quick Kick July. Quick Kicks are our monthly creative challenges that you can complete in 15 minutes or less a day. For Quick Kick July, we're challenging you to create a simple drawing upside down every day throughout the month of July. Now, we don't mean that you need to do a headstand and draw. We're actually challenging you to draw something from a photograph which has been flipped upside down. Now, this challenge actually stimulates the creative side of your brain. It teaches you to see the way that an artist sees. One of the most common mistakes that people make while drawing is to assume or draw what they think they see rather than what is actually in front of them. So by flipping an image upside down, it forces your brain to see abstract shapes and so takes away the label of what the item actually is. Then we have Draw on Junk July. Every day in July, we're challenging you to either draw or paint on junk. Now, that could be found items such as wooden spoons, old toys, old clothes, you name it. Or you can create images where you draw on top of photos of junk, or create images with junk by arranging it in some way. And this can be done digitally if you prefer. So maybe an old button could become a face, a lolly stick could become a character. I mean, there's all sorts of things you can do with the challenge. Then we have 31 printed photos. So in an effort to bring back the printed photograph, we are challenging you to take and print one photograph that best represents your day every single day throughout July. Now, the aim of the challenge is to have a non-digital photo album full of printed photographs by the end of the month, an album that can be kept on the shelf and then treasured by future generations in your family. Now for the strange one. Half past Christmas. Yep, we're just over halfway there already, and we are challenging you to come up with one festive creation for this coming Christmas every single day throughout the month of July. Imagine how organised you're going to feel in December. We will, as always, have lists of our optional prompts which you can download from our website. But that's it for now. We'll be back with our new episode very soon. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you did, perhaps you'd like to share it and leave a review for us on iTunes.